So this is the second part of today's lecture, maintenance safety related questions for equipment manufacturers. Uh, these are questions or these are the important parameters which one should take care of. We have arranged them in the questions form so that every question gets a tick, that is, it is checked. So there are several areas in which attention by equipment manufacturers can improve maintenance safety directly or indirectly in the field. In this regard, the following questions can assist manufacturers to determine whether the common problems that might be encountered during maintenance phase has been addressed properly. So, number one, are adequate, clear, and easily understandable instructions available for maintenance and repair? So this is number one. Whenever you are doing maintenance, there should be clear instructions to the workers. They should know what their goals are. Where human factors principles used, were human factor principles used to minimize maintenance problems? Uh, Human factors, as we have discussed uh, today, uh, they should be uh, incorporated into the design so that whenever there is a maintenance problem, these human factors should have less effect on the maintenance. Can the disassembled item or equipment for repair be reassembled incorrectly so that it becomes hazardous to users? So this is number three. That is the at the design stage, uh, we should have some difference between uh, two parts which are to be assembled. If they are assembled incorrectly, then they can be hazardous. So they should not be able to assembled incorrectly. There should be some foolproofing in that. Number four, are the items requiring frequent maintenance be as accessible as possible? At the design stage, we can see the accessibility and the problem, the item which is having problems, they should be easily accessible. If it is not easily accessible, either we may not be doing maintenance properly or we may be having excess of time for maintenance, so we may be avoiding it, or we may get into some problem because if it is not easily accessible and we want to access it, we may make a mistake. Number five, is there any built-in mechanism which would indicate that safety critical item requires maintenance? So the safety critical items, they should be categorized and identified. Those items uh, which if fail would compromise safety. So they should be identified and there should be some mechanism to indicate that the safety critical item is requiring maintenance and repairs. Number six, is the need for special tools for repairing safety critical items minimized? We have discussed this previously as well. Sometimes we are using special tools. Ordinary tools are available in the market. Sometimes, due to design difficulties, we try to make some special tool to access those parts. And when those tools are not available, we may be making a jugaad, and that can lead to some hazards, some safety may be compromised. So special tools use should not be encouraged, and these tools usually they are supplied with the equipment which you purchase from the manufacturers. Do the repair instructions warn when protective gear must be worn because of pending hazards? Protective gears, these are special equipment which one would be using, like the gloves, like the goggles, like the helmet, like the special shoes. These are used when uh, hazard is pending. Whenever, as soon as you open something and there will be hazard, so you would require these items. Personal protective equipment, PPE, they are called. This would be your assignment as well, to submit an assignment on personal protective equipment. If we have to use them, then there should be some instructions printed out there, and everyone should know that here we have to use personal protective equipment. Number 8, is it possible to repair the item under consideration by people other than specially trained and equipped personnel? Sometimes a specially trained person may not be available. So, can anyone who is not trained enough, but who can use those tools, can he use it? Because if uh, everyone cannot access that, so there should not be access, because if the person is not specially trained and training is the requirement, then there can be a hazard, and life and property would be endangered. Number 9, is the repair process hazardous to involve repair workers? Sometimes we have to evacuate because all the people involved may not be safe. So those who are not safe, they are not required at the repair site. So this case should be identified. Number 10, are there effective warnings against working on systems that can shock people? Shock. Usually, we lose our lives because of shock, not because of any physical damage. Like there is a blast. Due to that blast, our body reacts, and that reaction sometimes can be fatal to us. Uh, Sometimes we may say we are working on an electrical uh, connection, and there is a blast or some sudden sound, and we may accidentally touch that high voltage. So that can get us into shock. Sometimes these things are used in cricket as well. In the fielding, they shock the opponent and then get them out. We have example of Bashir Bilor. There was a blast near him, although that blast didn't damage him, but that shock took his life. Number 11, is the item designed so that after a failure it would stop operating and not cause damage? Is the item designed so that after a failure it would stop operating and not cause damage? Very simple. If a part becomes weak, it should stop operating. It should not fail, because if it fails, uh, it can cause damage. So there should be some mechanism that it should stop operating of, or the operation of the equipment. Number 12, is there mechanism to indicate that the redundant units of safety critical systems have failed? There are some units which are not working at that time, but If safety is compromised, those items or those systems become active, but they have already failed. So in case of failure of the equipment, the safety critical system that is also not working. So there can be huge uh, loss, human loss. So we should know those safety critical systems. They are uh, in working condition throughout. Number 13. Are their voltages reduced to levels at test points to minimize hazards to maintenance workers? Sometimes, even in the industry, uh, at our houses, we use usually a single phase motor. So our pumps, they are single phase, and in single phase, the voltage is 220. 220 is fatal, but you can survive it if properly helped. But 440, that is three phase connection, that is dangerous. And sometimes in the industry we are using 12,000 volts. 12,000 volts. Uh, they have special motors. Their size and their uh, price is reduced if the voltage is increased. So we are using in the industry the high voltage equipment, but the problem with them is we cannot go near it. So if we want to test, say, the voltage or amperes, we have to use CT. CT is transformer. C is for current, T for transformer. So we use the current transformer to reduce the voltage at that point and then measure it. We know how much is the multiplying factor. Multiplying factor is, say, 40. So if you get 5 volts, so uh, 40 would mean it is 200. Number 14, are warnings included in instructions to alert repair workers of any danger? All the equipment may not be dangerous, but some places in the equipment may be dangerous. So at those locations, the warning sign should be uh, displayed. Usually in the WAPDA poles, that is 11,000 volts, they have a special danger sign, that is two bones, and in between that skull. So that is a danger sign, and that is in red color. So something like that, a warning sign or warning written, that should be present if there is some place where there is danger. Is there drive to minimize the cost of safety critical part replacements? Uh, from the management, these items should be placed and replaced uh, frequently, and from the government, its price should be kept at minimum so that uh, people buy these things and use them and thus save the precious human lives. Is there an appropriate mechanism to remove fuel or hazardous fluid from equipment to be repaired? These fuels, these are hydrocarbons, and if a spark is produced near them, that may induce a blast. So whenever you are working on some equipment where there is a hazardous fluid like fuel, then its removal from that container should be made possible. Uh, I had to repair my fuel tank once. It was removed, and the people knew, the workers, they knew that they have to rinse it properly with water and uh, weld it in the open atmosphere so that the effect of blast, if it is there, is minimum. Anyway, I didn't weld that. I went opted for the new one, but I have heard many hazards have occurred in the Shobha Bazaar because of doing that welding there. Number 17, does the equipment contain safety interlocks that must be bypassed to make adjustments or accomplish repairs? Safety interlocks. These are made available or placed there in order to confirm that anyone who is going beyond this point, he is going for repairs and he knows everything. And there should be no way that it should be bypassed, because if it is bypassed, and there is a danger, hazard can occur. Are the test points located at easily reachable locations? Test points, as we have discussed previously, we would be testing our equipment frequently. So there would be test points on the equipment. So these test points should be located at easily reachable locations, because if they are not at reachable location, either we would not be doing tests or we would be inviting some hazard. So these were the maintenance and safety related discussions which we have done, and now let us discuss the post maintenance testing. Post maintenance testing means that we would be testing an equipment after its repair. Post maintenance testing helps increase the quality of maintenance performed. Basically, preventive post maintenance testing has three objectives. So number one is to ensure that original deficiency has been rectified appropriately. You have opened this equipment for maintenance and you had a recognized fault. So that fault must be rectified. You have opened it, of course, you have to rectify it, and you should ensure that it is rectified. Ensure that no new deficiency has been introduced. If you are doing a maintenance job, you would be opening an equipment. So if you are opening it and you don't properly reassemble it, you may induce another deficiency. So the original should be removed and no new deficiencies should be introduced. So that is the second objective, and the third objective is ensure that the item under consideration is ready to perform its specified mission. That is, although you have removed the deficiency, you have not imparted any new deficiency, but the equipment is not working because you have to do some alignments, some adjustments. So you should do those alignments and adjustments and make this equipment ready to perform. So these are three objectives of post-maintenance testing. Discussion following this would be encompassing all these three. So post-maintenance testing should be carried out of all types of corrective maintenance activities as well as after some preventive maintenance actions is considered appropriate. Sentence shows that two types of maintenances may have been done. One is the corrective type or another is the preventive maintenance type. So whatever type of maintenance you have done, after that you have to do post-maintenance testing. Testing should be commensurate with the specific type of maintenance accomplished and the importance of structure system part to facility reliability and safety. So whatever testing you are doing, that should be verifying whatever maintenance you have performed. Uh, if you have performed one maintenance and you are testing something else, that should not help. Help should be the maintenance testing would help only when the part which has been worked on is tested. In some situations, this may only require verification and checkout. Verification that you see it and then say okay, but in other formal documented post-maintenance testing may be necessary. Usually in simple maintenance activities, you just check it yourself and verify it and then hand it over to the production team. But in some other instances, those are a bit complicated and they are done at far distance away from the facility, then it should be documented. So, what are the key elements in that post-maintenance testing? These are: number one, clearly defined responsibility of each group involved. 2, 3, 4, whatever number of groups they have performed the maintenance, their responsibilities should be clear and everyone should have done their part. Number two, availability of guidance to planners to identify appropriate tests. Usually the equipment manufacturers, they identify what tests they are necessary and are to verify that the equipment is in working condition. So the planners of the facility where this maintenance is occurring, they already know what type of maintenance test, post-maintenance tests are to be performed, and they would be performing them. Scope of equipment tested to incorporate all facility equipment system. When you are testing the facility which you have repaired, but it should be with the integrated system. The full system should also be in working condition. Number 4, performance of test under relevant system operational parameters. So one should know what are the operational parameters and then check whether the repaired equipment is performing in those operational parameters or not. Of course, it should do. If it is not, then it needs your attention and some more consideration. Number 5, specification of appropriate tests incorporates input received from operating, maintenance, and technical support groups. Those who are operating this equipment or the maintenance or support groups, they know what failure was witnessed, and when the maintenance is done, they would know what are the appropriate tests which can verify that the equipment is repaired properly. So those people should be involved who are operating that equipment, are maintaining that equipment, are supporting the operation and maintenance of that equipment. Number 6, testing performed with consent of operator owner using authorization, instructions, procedures, and conducted and reviewed by a competent person. Whenever you are performing tests, it may involve costs. You have to spend some money, or in case of some failure, there may be danger that the equipment may also be damaged. So for that reason, you have to take consent of the available person, that is an operator or the owner. who allows you to do those post-maintenance testing. A form is used to document, authorize, and review post-maintenance testing results. So there should be a form in which we can document uh, post-maintenance testing which are required, and then authorize, and then the readings which are received in post-maintenance testing, those results are then reviewed, whether those results show that this is properly repaired or not. The next section is operator documented post-maintenance testing responsibilities. What are they? Number one, defining the need for a level of post-maintenance testing as well as for document approval. Number two, minimizing the redundancy of post-maintenance test and post-maintenance test excessiveness. We can do a lot of tests, but these tests do carry costs and may delay the operation of the equipment as well. So the test should be sufficient, not less, so that the proper investigation is not done, or it should not be excessive, that those tests are also performed which are not needed. So we should know how much testing we should be doing. Number three, providing assistance to maintenance activity as required by performing applicable testing. So it is in a way assistance to maintenance activity, and during that period or after that period or with that team, you can verify that the equipment is in proper working order. Clearly defining operational parameters and associated criteria. Operational parameters, when the equipment is operating, say the pressure is between 100 and 150, so is that there the motor is taking say 100 amperes, is that taking 100 amperes or it is taking less or more? So these things should be verified. Number five, emphasizing the importance of ensuring configuration management. Proper configuration of the equipment, that should be verified, and all the parts, whatever they are, they should be seen and properly aligned. Ensuring the proper authorization, performance, examination, and documentation of post-maintenance testing before returning the equipment or item to operation. Authorization. We need authorization for maintenance and authorization for post-maintenance testing. When we are authorized, then we can see its performance, we can examine and then document it, and that document will go with the equipment, and the operators or whoever is the responsible person, he would know in what condition this equipment is. It may not be exactly in the original condition. So if there is some difference, that would be written into a document, and that would be known to everyone. Number seven, ensure the performance of all associated delay tests before or in conjunction with returning the equipment item to operation. Sometimes we take tests as soon as it is repaired. Sometimes we delay it. we test those when the machine is loaded. So all type of tests should be done before it is handed over to the operators for operation and for production. Number 8, restoring structures, systems, and components to exact set points for active or standby mode subsequent to testing. So after maintenance and testing, uh, this equipment should be in the ready condition. Either it should be for active, you switch on and it starts working, or it should be in standby. When you switch on, it gets into standby and then it can operate. So its readiness should be ensured as well. So what are the activities which in post-maintenance testing can be performed? So we have categorized those activities. So these activities are: number 1, maintenance that affects the operation or integrity of gas, fluid system or parts within such system. So if the gas is flowing or the fluid is flowing, that circuit should be checked that there is no leakage, no bypass, no open valves, everything is in proper order. Testing measurement equipment system. Whatever equipment we are using for testing and measurement, that should be active. Maintenance tests that affect electrical distribution equipment, for example, high voltage or breaker connection. So these things should also be checked, that high voltage is available and it is safe, and breaker connections are done so that in case of any emergency, that breaker can break the connection. Chemistry and health physics associated instructions. Chemistry means that whatever chemicals there are, they are safe, and health physics, that is those points where you can touch, you can move to those instruments, they are also checked and are in fine order. Maintenance that affects the strength of parts, components, and fittings. So those parts and components which you have opened, their strength should be verified so that whenever they are used, they should be safe for operation. Number 6, maintenance that affect electronic components are control circuitry, for example, limit switches, controllers, protection relays, etc. Limit switches, these are used to limit the motion. Sometimes, say in these lifts, we have limit switches. When it moves up, it reaches the limit switch and there it is switched off. Controllers, which are controlling the equipment, and protection relays. Protection relays are activated when there is a danger. So integrity of these things should be verified so that the equipment is safe when operated. Number 7, maintenance that affects parts in an instrument loop or instrument detector. So sometimes there are some equipment which are in loop. In loop means that they should work, only then the next work would be done. And so all those loops or detectors, they should be in the working order so that proper safety is ensured. And the activities which we can perform in the post-maintenance testing are: number 1 is the leak test, number 2 is current voltage integrity checks, because if the voltage is leaking, it can cause damage. And if current is leaking, it can cause damage to the equipment. Voltage can cause damage to the worker. Component calibration or alignment. We have to check calibration and alignment after uh, maintenance. Like in your car, when you do repairs on your suspension system, there is always a need for realignment of wheels. Non-destructive tests as specified by code. There may be some non-destructive tests in the equipment. Usually we perform non-destructive tests. Destructive tests are only done in the laboratories where equipment parts are made. Number 5, visual dimensional inspection. Sometimes some parts uh, may be visible to the eye, so visual inspections are also important. Part operational exercise, including pressure, temperature, flow, and vibration. Uh, these are usually known to us at what pressure or temperature or flow rate or vibration levels our equipment would be. So if we test it and it is in that range, it means it can be handed over to the production team. And the response time. The response time is also important. Uh, Sometimes some equipment uh, they don't give response at the proper time, so it means there is some problem. And we should also be giving response at proper time to everything in the maintenance so that our work is finished as soon as possible. So these are common post maintenance test activities. In the response time, there is a relay which is used at your home. Sometimes, uh, if the short circuit is for very short duration, it would not shut off the equipment, the breaker, because the response time is very short. So there should be enough response time to detect and then take action and shut down that equipment. So these were some topics from quality of work, safety, and post maintenance testing. You have a separate safety subject in which you may have studied more than what we have discussed here. We would be discussing human factor in maintenance as a separate topic. So for today, this is uh, complete. Now, any question from you?